The 2015 Tour de France will begin in Utrecht, Netherlands on the 4th of July and finish on the Champs-Élysées in Paris, July 26th. We've just previewed the top contenders to win the race, and now we're going to take a look at the route that these cyclists will endure, consisting of 21 stages, 3,360 kilometers, 7 mountain stages with 5 summit finishes, 2 rest days, 1 team trial, and 198 riders. Ian O'Sullivan, owner and author of cyclingbetting.co.uk, is on the line to take us through the Tour de France route. Now, as far as cycling events go, is this one of, if not the toughest cycling tour?
Yes, the simple answer is yes, it is one of the toughest cycling races. Some will argue that certain versions of the Giro d'Italia and the Tour of Spain are actually tougher races. But when it comes to the actual event, it's the biggest event. It's the biggest cycling event on the planet every year. It's when the whole cycling world goes crazy. There's still not quite the same level of excitement and intensity around the Tours of Spain or Tours of Italy as you get for the Tour de France. It may not be as brutal a route as you will get in some of those races, but it is still an incredibly challenging race that they have this year. All
right. Can you take us through the main stages of the Tour?
Sure. The route is quite a varied route this year. It's more favoured towards the climbers. This year with lots of climbing, but let's start and take a quick scoot through each of the stages. We're starting in the first stage in Utrecht on Saturday, July the 4th. A short 13.8 kilometre time trial. It's longer than what the traditional title for the opening stage when it's a time trial, which is they call it a prologue. But this is slightly longer, so they'll give you the title of a stage 1. It's 13.8 kilometres. It's dead flat. It's quite a twisty little route, so it's going to be one for the power men. People like Tony Martin, who's going to be the favourite, and I think probably the most likely winner, Fabien Cancellara, and up-and-coming superstar of the time trials, Tom Dumoulin. Moving on to stage 2, we get the first opportunity to see the sprinters in action, where we should probably see Mark Cavendish at the front of the affairs, with the likes of Andre Greipel, Nasser Bouhanni, and Peter Sagan, Alexander Kristoff in the mix. It's dead flat, but it's going to be an interesting stage because it's quite a busy route with regards to road furniture. There's going to be winds coming in from the sea, and they actually finish on top of the Pilier Dam flood defence. It's a very unusual finish. It's actually in the sea, more or less, is where they finish. It could be an interesting stage if there is a strong wind whips up from the sea, because we could see some splits and some echelons, which could cause some time gaps. Stage 3 is going to be a fantastic stage. I'm really looking forward to this. It's only the 3rd stage in, but we could already see the first shake-up in the GC. This stage is 159.5 kilometres from Anvers to the Mur de Huy in Belgium. The last 50 k's or so takes them over the latter stages of the classic race, Flèche Wallonne, which finishes on the Mur de Huy. The climb is 1.3 kilometres long at the finish, hitting 20% in places. Won this year by Alejandro Valverde. It should be a very fascinating finish, as GC riders and the punchers try to battle it out at the top of the hill. We could see some splits. We could see some guys getting caught behind in the busy traffic on the very narrow roads. And yeah, it should be a fascinating stage. Should see the likes of Valverde again up there with maybe Dan Martin has a good chance as well.
Now, next we move on to stage 4, and I believe this is going to be quite interesting for obviously what happened in last year over the cobbles. Could you expand on that?
Yeah, last year this equivalent stage, you could say, was stage 5. And it was a wet and chaotic day, is one way of putting it. We saw Chris Froome crash twice on the stage and eventually having to abandon. So the pre-race favourite last year crashed out. Yeah, they ride over some of the cobbled roads that are used in the famous Paris-Roubaix race, in all the 7 sections of pave, as it's known, covering 13 kilometres of cobbled roads. If it's wet again this year, there could be carnage. Generally, this stage will probably get broken up into pieces, as some guys can really go really hard on the cobbles, and some of the other lighter guys will really struggle. We could see some big time gaps here on only the 4th stage. Moving on to stage 5, it's a straightforward stage, day for the sprinters, not much to say about it really. Stage 6, you could say the same, 191 kilometres to Le Havre, but it finishes with a tough uphill finish that should suit the likes of Peter Sagan and Michael Matthews. Stage 7, another straightforward sprint stage. Nothing much to say about that, really. A 190-kilometer run from Liv Arro to Fougères. Stage 8 is another interesting stage, flat and more or less nondescript for 175 kilometers, but they finish on a climb of the Mur de Bretagne, an uphill finish which will really suit some riders but will really punish some others. This hill was last used in 2011 when Cadel Evans beat Alberto Contador, but we should see the likes of Quintana, Contador, and maybe some like Alexander Kristoff or John Degenkolb possibly getting in the mix as well and sprinting at the finish. Stage 9 is going to be a very interesting stage for the outcome of the race. It's a team time trial over 28 kilometers. 9 riders go together. It's quite a lumpy stage. Finishing on the Côte du Cadudel in Plumalec. We should see the likes of BMC, the team time trial world champions, battle it out with Movistar, Astana and Team Sky. After the rest day, on Monday, the 13th of July, we come back on Tuesday, the 14th, Bastille Day, a day for the French possibly, with stage 10. A 167-kilometer trip from Tarbes to La Pierre-Saint-Martin, and this is going to be the first real GC battle for the favourites. A very tough climb, a haute categorie, which basically means that it's the toughest category climb on the tour. The final climb is it's more or less 20 kilometers long from the bottom, rising to 1,540 meters, and this should see the first separation between the really strong guys and those that are not quite fit. I expect Nairo Quintana, Alberto Contador to be at the front, and Chris Froome. We'll see how fit Nibali is if he can stay with these guys today. It should be a fascinating opening salvos from the GC favourites. Stage 11, quite a lumpy stage. It's got a haute category climb in the middle and a first category climb over the Col d'Aspin. They climb over the Col de Tourmalet, a very famous climb in the Tour de France, and finish on a climb up to the Côte d'Arrêt. This is going to be another tough stage for the climbers in the Pyrenees. It should be an interesting one to see who can maybe get an advantage over the haute category Tourmalet and the descent down before the short climb up to the Côte d'Arrêt. Stage 12, another incredibly difficult day. 4 climbs in total, 2 category 1 climbs, then finishing on the haute category Plateau de Bailly. The final climb is 15.8 kilometers at nearly 8%. It's a beautiful climb. It's a really difficult climb, and again, we're going to see some really big gaps between the front guys and all those behind them. Stage 13, we're now moving into sort of central France, into the Massif Central area, going from Muret to Rodez, 198 kilometers. This looks like a pretty nondescript stage, but this is a very, very lumpy part of France. I've been around this area quite a lot. It's just up and down all day, and it looks like a day for a breakaway. Could be an exciting stage. It doesn't look like it on paper, but it could be a very interesting stage. Next day, similar kind of stage, up and down, finishing on the Côte de la Croix-Neuve, an uphill finish. Should suit the likes of Sagan and Alexander Kristoff. Next, we have a day for the sprinters, possibly, maybe a breakaway. Stage 15, pretty nondescript stage. 16, quite similar. We have a tough little category 2 climb coming just 20 kilometers from the finish. 12 kilometers from the finish. Somebody might be able to get away over the top and descend quickly down to the finishing gap, a town very often used in the Tour de France. 17, this is going to be an interesting stage, because this stage is an exact replica of a stage that was in the Criterium de Dauphiné just a few weeks ago, which was won in brilliant fashion by Bardet, a French rider riding for AG2R. I had actually picked him out that day in my blog at 22-1, I think, to win the stage. He attacked just going over the top of the Col d'Alos with only maybe a couple of hundred meters left to the top of the climb, but he descended like a madman. Absolutely incredible. His descent was just breathtaking. It was just so dangerous, but he managed to pull out a minute on the favourites going to the final climb up to the Pralou, and he held on to the finish to win the stage. It'd be interesting to see if he tries it again in the Tour, or if somebody else will try a copycat type of attack, or whether the favourites will close it down and try to battle it out in the Pralou. We're now in the Alps, and the last few stages in the Alps are going to really separate the men from the boys, as they say. Stage 18, 186 kilometers, finishing in Saint-Jean-de-Maurienne. Couple of days, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 climbs this day. You know, not much climbing after all, really, on a day, just 7 climbs. It's going to be a tough day in the saddle. 19, finishing in La Toussuire, a Category 1 climb. They go over the Croix de Fer, haute category, in the stage that day. This is going to be an incredibly difficult day. 138 kilometers, so it's quite short, but it's going to be absolutely flat out from the start. Stage 20, and here's the Queen stage, as they call it, the stage that everyone's looking forward to. They go over the Col de la Croix de Fer again, because they've had to reroute the route because of landslides on the Galibier, where they were supposed to go over. But it finishes on the iconic, the famous, the fantastic Alpe d'Huez. 21 hairpins, 13.8 kilometers at 8.1%. Famous for Dutch corner, Irish corner, every sort of corner where the fans are 20 deep. It's fantastic. It's going to be a brilliant conclusion to the race, and I expect Nairo Quintana to crown his Tour de France with a victory on the stage. And then we have the final stage, just the ceremonial processional route into Paris, where it'll finish in a bunch sprint on the Champs-Élysées, where Mark Cavendish may win. We'll see if he's still in the race.
Okay, fantastic. That was a very in-depth preview there of the tour. And it all sounds like there's a lot of climbing involved. So which of the Fab Four do you think are sort of better adapt at climbing, and who are we looking at winning the tour?
Well, the reason they're the Fab Four and the reason they're top of the betting is because all 4 of them are really good at climbing. You know, Alberto Contador is one of the best climbers in the world, has done this for years. He's won many Grand Tours. You know, he's a fantastic climber. Nairo Quintana is the up-and-comer. He's younger, he's faster, you know, in short little bursts. I think he's going to have a field day in the Tour. Vincenzo Nibali did very well in the climbs last year. He just won the Italian National Championships again last week. It was his first victory this year, which is quite unusual, but that's what he did last year. He didn't win a single race until the National Championships just the week before the Tour de France started. And he went on to destroy the field when it came to the mountains in the Tour last year. And of course, you've got Chris Froome. Chris Froome, who, you know, when he takes off and he accelerates away from the front, it's just a whirlwind. His legs, his arms, it's just a blur of legs as he goes. His acceleration is breathtaking at times. I have noticed this year that his accelerations have not lasted as long. Maybe they'll be longer in Tour de France, but in the Dauphiné, when he did go, he wasn't going as long and as hard as he was, say, in the Tour de France before. And, you know, it's going to be an incredible battle between them. I think they'll all have their days. There'll be days when Chris Froome will win. There'll be days when Nairo Quintana will win. There'll be days when Contador might. But if I was to put them in the order of who I think will be the best climbers and where they will finish at the end of the day, I'm going to put Nairo Quintana top. I think he's the best climber in the race, and I think he'll win several stages by, you know, 30 seconds to a minute, which will pull him right into the lead. And Chris Froome should be right there as well. Maybe a really tough battle between Contador and Nibali for the 3rd, 4th spot. But we could also see the likes of Thibaut Pinot and TJ Van Gardner, as I mentioned in the overall favourites preview. They'll be right there as well. And there are several other climbers who are not going to be in the running for the GC mix, who will be looking for stage victories. So there's all to play for.
Okay, fantastic. That was Ian O'Sullivan from cyclingbetting.co.uk. The link can be found in the description right below this video if you want to head on over to the website. Ian, thank you for joining us today.